The following program is sponsored by CBN.
Coming up, what the founders really meant by the separation of church and state.
The way he used it is, guys, the government's not going to stop religious activities.
And how today the original intent has been twisted.
When the government tells you what you can believe and what you cannot believe, that is a significant loss in our freedom.
Plus, the New York Times best-selling author who nearly died, Danielle Walker, shares what saved her life on today's 700 Club. Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Advocates for criminal justice reform may be getting an early Christmas present. After weeks of delay, the bill is now moving toward a vote in the Senate.
President Trump joined faith-based groups to support the First Step Act. They say it brings needed change to our courts and our prison system. Dale Hurd has the story.
With a new Congress coming in just a few weeks, criminal justice reform is viewed by some as a now or never proposition. Last week, it appeared all but dead, but now it's on track for a Senate vote next week, where it's expected to pass. The First Step Act would reform sentencing guidelines and prepare inmates to return to society. Its backers say it would also reduce recidivism when a criminal becomes a repeat offender. Sean Hopwood served time for bank robbery, became a jailhouse lawyer, and is now a law professor at Georgetown.
We know that certain programs already can reduce recidivism because the Federal Bureau of Prisons has one. The Residential Drug and Abuse Program, which has reduced recidivism by 16%.
The president supports the legislation, as do some key Republicans. But critics, including Senator Tom Cotton, oppose it because it begins rolling back mandatory minimum sentencing and will speed up the release of some current inmates. Some fear it could give violent criminals a pass. The split in the GOP is one reason Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had been reluctant to bring the bill to the floor. But he's now put a process in motion that could see a vote early next week.
We're really looking to get this done and have a Christmas miracle.
Heather Rice-Minus with Prison Fellowship told CBN News why many faith leaders support the bill.
Right now, the criminal justice system, we have some serious issues in terms of people receiving disproportional sentences and people not having the skills and opportunities they need inside prison to really transform and come home as good neighbors, good citizens.
A Justice Department report says 70 million Americans are directly involved in the criminal justice system. Reform advocates say it's bad policies, not an increase in crime, that has led to what some are calling an incarceration nation.
And we see the criminal justice system in this country as a huge barrier to opportunity for millions and millions of people, particularly those who have the least resources. And it creates a poverty trap. It makes us less safe and wastes a lot of resources.
The First Step Act cleared the House in May. And if it passes the Senate next week, many believe it will deliver the most significant changes to the criminal justice system in a generation. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
I certainly support this. We need to have reform in the criminal justice system. The stats are just overwhelming. We incarcerate more people in the United States than any other industrial nation. The reason it was let's get tough on crime bills that went through the Congress and then were signed into law by President Clinton. This is all way back when in 1994. It's time to reform it because we're literally putting too many people in jail. And they're staying there for very long periods of time because of these minimum sentencing guidelines. And we've taken the power out of the court system, away from federal judges to say certain cases need leniency. And we've created a nation of criminals. When you look at those stats, that 70 million of us have somebody that we know in the criminal justice system, you do scratch your head. This isn't based on an increase in crime, and it's not reducing crime. What it is reducing the criminal population. So it would be really good if this got through by Christmas. In other news, churches and other nonprofits may get a break from a new tax. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. The 2017 Republican Tax Cut and Jobs Act put more money in most Americans' paychecks, but it also imposed a 21% tax on nonprofits for providing employees with parking, transportation, and other benefits. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says new IRS guidelines on the tax offer flexibility and minimizes the burden to nonprofits. The new provisions come after several senators urged a repeal of the tax. Well, President Trump's private former attorney is speaking out after his sentencing this week. A judge ordered Michael Cohen to 3 years in prison for financial crimes and campaign finance violations. Cohen told federal prosecutors the president directed him to pay off 2 women who claimed they had affairs with Mr. Trump. The president says he didn't tell Cohen to do anything wrong and that his attorney acted on his own accord. Cohen responded in an exclusive interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos.
I did not do it to embarrass the president. He knows the truth. I know the truth.
The president could face indictment when he leaves office, and the investigations are growing. A new report from the Wall Street Journal quotes federal officials who say New York prosecutors are now looking into misuse of funds by the president's inaugural committee. Well, just 1 year after the Me Too movement began, evangelical leaders at Wheaton College hosted a summit focused solely on abuse in the church. Many survivors who are also well-known leaders spoke out. Heather Sells sat down with Christian teacher Beth Moore and others to talk about this unprecedented event.
The summit is a historic attempt by the evangelical world to publicly address abuse in the church. And it has caught the attention not just of survivors, but church leaders.
I have been raised in the church, and I have never seen anything like today in a gathering of this kind.
Bible study leader Beth Moore kicked off the meeting, noting a recent report on widespread abuse within independent fundamental Baptist churches.
So the question comes to us again, shall the church stand idly by? I've been told by a number of fellow Christians, I just don't read articles like that, Beth.
Moore told CBN News the church must stand ready for these stories.
One of the things that I really want to push back on is this thing that says, I just can't stand to hear about it. Listen, if people can go through this, we can listen to their stories.
And from the appearance here, people are preparing. More than 1,000 individuals attended or live streamed the event. 40 faith-based groups also watched remotely. Conference speaker and church consultant Nancy Beach says she sees a desire by many ministry leaders to learn more.
I do think the fact that so many people are streaming in and many organizations are doing that is a sign that there's a need and there's a call for help.
This has been an issue in our churches. It's not just the Catholics, it's not just fundamentalists. They've all been in the news lately. It's also evangelical churches, and we got to address some cultural issues within the church.
The summit put an emphasis on pastors, calling for greater accountability.
I would say an unaccountable pastor is both unbiblical and unhelpful and can even be dangerous. I think pastors need to be an accountable community with others.
I also think that what we're just exploring here is as much an abuse of power as it is sexual sin.
Perhaps the biggest message, survivors must be heard.
When they become the priority for us, for all of us in leadership, in servant leadership, in lay leadership, whatever it may be, that's health.
For many churches, getting involved in an event like this is an important first step, and it might just signal to survivors that change is possible. Reporting in Wheaton, Illinois, Heather Sells, CBN News.
An important story. Thank you, Heather. Well, Israel is responding to terror attacks in the West Bank. The Israel Defense Forces arrested dozens of Hamas activists in overnight raids. This after a pair of deadly shootings that killed 3 Israelis earlier this week. One of those victims, a baby delivered prematurely after the mother was shot. Hamas is believed to be behind the attacks. A historic site in Israel now is safer for tourists. The IDF announcing this week that more than 1,500 landmines have been cleared near the site revered as the place where Jesus was baptized. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
This is Qasr al-Yahud on the Jordan River, the place many believe John baptized Jesus. It's also thought to be the area the children of Israel crossed over to the Promised Land and the site where Elijah ascended to heaven. Israel's side of the baptismal site opened to visitors in 2011, but the 250-acre area around it, known as the land of the monasteries, remained off limits. This area is strewn with mines and other explosive devices remaining from the Six-Day War and beyond. Because of security concerns, the area was marked and fenced, and access to the church's properties has been restricted since the 1970s.
We are working here almost 1 year. In this monastery, we work here 3 months. It takes us time to clean the area, clean from mines, clean from motors, clean for booby traps.
7 churches have property here. 3 monasteries have already been cleaned, and CBN News toured 2 of them. The Franciscan Chapel was built in 1956 and belongs to the Vatican. The Ethiopian monastery was much larger and had a bakery and guest house.
Every millimeter of this site is checked at least by 3 people and by 2 different actions. So, as you understand, it's a very dangerous and difficult job.
Marcel Aviv leads the Israeli agency responsible for this type of operation. It's working with Hallow Trust, the world's oldest and largest humanitarian mine clearance charity, to clean this area.
When we will finish all the job here, those lands will be given to their owners, and the owners are the churches.
During the Six-Day War, this church-owned land came under Israeli control. It became an easy target for the Palestine Liberation Organization to attack Israeli soldiers. Eventually, the monks abandoned the area and explosives were spread all around. Israel has maps of the mines, but according to Supervisor Moshe Hillman, many have shifted over the years, and there are other challenges.
And it was here full of metal. It was a firing zone, it was an irrigation zone. Monks have a small farm in this monastery, so it takes us time to clean.
Some 800,000 people visit the baptismal site each year, and that's expected to triple once the monasteries are back.
I hope that this garden that was left 50 years ago will be green again, and all of us will be happy to visit here and to see this amazing area. I hope and it will be, and I'm sure that it will be.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Qasr Al-Yahud, the Jordan Valley.
Gordon, as Chris just suggested, I imagine that site will become an even more popular tourist attraction now.
Well, it was opened up just a few years ago. I've actually held a baptismal service at that site. There's another one closer to Galilee that is a little bit safer. Aren't any mines strewn around it, but this one is the one that historically has been recognized as the place where John the Baptist baptized Jesus. And at that point, the Jordan is actually just a small stream, and you get this warning: if you go too far into the Jordan River, well, you've crossed over to the nation of Jordan, and we're not going to let you come back. And by the way, they might shoot at you. So it's not exactly a safe environment. And when you drive to it, you see all these warnings: don't get off the road because there are all these mines around. So it's one of those where you're dead to your own life and you're risen into new life. If you're going to get baptized there, it's a dangerous area. It's good to see Israel cleaning it up. It is a sign that relations between Jordan and Israel are getting a lot more peaceful than they have been in decades past. And so, yay, this is a good thing. And when you go there, you see not just structures that were built in the 1950s, you see ancient structures that are centuries old on both sides of the river. So not just on the Israeli side, but also on the Jordanian side, you see a lot of churches. So this has been the recognized site for a long time, going all the way back to the Byzantine. So this is the place. I encourage people to go because it'll change your view of how the Bible came into being. It'll change your view about the baptism. And it's a wonderful place, if you want to be baptized, to go for that service as well.
Yeah, remarkable, remarkable. Well, coming up tomorrow is the anniversary of the Bill of Rights. So what did the Founding Fathers really mean by the separation of church and state? We'll deconstruct that proverbial wall when we come back.
The Bill of Rights was ratified on December 15th, 1791, so tomorrow is its 227th anniversary. And the phrase, wall of separation between church and state, originally came from one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. Well, today that phrase has been twisted to say something the founders never intended. As Paul Strand reports, the wall of separation was never supposed to mean government versus God.
America's Constitution resides here in the National Archives. Its Bill of Rights protects freedoms such as speech, the press, and religion. It says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Today's prevailing opinion believes that means government and God can have nothing to do with each other, thus creating a high wall separating church and state. But what did the founding fathers who wrote it actually mean?
When the founders talked about separation of church and state, they had a historical context that we really lack.
Reverend Eddie Hyatt, author of Pilgrims and Patriots.
Church and state was merged together, and the church used the power of the state to enforce its doctrines and practices.
He says certain governments used deadly force against dissenters who wanted to worship in their own way.
Those people were persecuted, burned at the stake. Some had their tongues cut out. The founders did not want that kind of Christianity.
And so that's the context they have of separation of church and state. It was never the church taking over the state, it's always the state taking over the church.
Author Jerry Newcomb, who wrote the book that made America, says the founders opposed such force.
They didn't want to have a national established Church of America like you have the Church of England, forcing people to believe something that they didn't believe in.
Thomas Jefferson wrote to worried pastors in a famous 1802 letter assuring them government wouldn't interfere with their faith.
Because there's a wall of separation between church and state. And so the way he used it is, guys, the government's not going to stop religious activities.
Then almost 150 years later, more liberal justices and judges began to interpret that to mean government had to wall off any touch of faith on any public institution or the people in it.
William Federer, author of the daily American Minute.
And that's when they began to reinterpret that phrase to say, no, we're going to get faith and God and everything out.
Such as the 1980 Supreme Court ruling that kicked the Ten Commandments out of public schools.
They said if the Ten Commandments were on the schoolroom wall, the children might read them, meditate on them, venerate them, and obey them.
We got to make sure that kid doesn't say God at graduation. You can't let a kid pray over their lunch.
Hyatt says the founders would be distressed by these rulings.
To ban Bible reading and prayer from public schools, remove crosses and Ten Commandment displays from public places.
Attorney Jeremy Dice fights for religious rights.
When the government tells you what you can believe and what you cannot believe, that is a significant loss in our freedom.
It's ironic that judges will say, well, we have to maintain separation of church and state. They're quoting from Jefferson, and Jefferson in the Declaration said all men are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Here's Jefferson acknowledging he believed in a creator, and they're using his phrase out of context to prohibit a creator.
In that same letter, Jefferson showed where he stands.
At the end of it, Thomas Jefferson says, will you please pray to God for me, and I will pray to God for you. He violates the separation of church and state in the very letter that gave us the phrase.
And right after he wrote it,
President Jefferson left the White House to go to the United States Capitol at the time to do what? To go to church that Sunday.
In the Capitol.
In the United States Capitol buildings.
The U.S. Supreme Court has more than 50 depictions of the Ten Commandments in its own building.
George Washington was sworn in on the Holy Bible. He said, so help me God, which was the common way of taking oaths. George Washington even leaned down and kissed the Holy Bible.
They did not want a national church, but they wanted God in all of their proceedings.
So, you know, if their idea was, well, there should be no reference to God in our government, then the founders, you know, absolutely were schizophrenic. They absolutely did not mean the separation of God and government.
As Newcomb put it, while the founders made religious freedom a priority, they certainly did not intend to make America into some sort of secular wasteland. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the National Archives.
Well, there's an additional phrase in that amendment, and it's or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise. as Christians living in a free country, we get to freely exercise. So please, in your churches, put up the 10 Commandments on your home. Do that. Pray often. Pray without ceasing. You have the right to have the free exercise. And from my standpoint, if you can't do it in a government building, you can certainly do it everywhere else. So do it on the sidewalk, do it in your home, do it wherever you feel led to do it. Freely exercise your religion. Realize that's one of the great privileges we have in the United States of America. Terry?
Well, up next, we travel to a shop in Jerusalem where beautiful Christmas crafts are made.
Christmas ornaments, let's say, or nativity. They carve biblical stories into wood and people enjoy it. It's beautiful and lives for a long time.
We'll trace the history of these olive wood handicrafts and see how they're helping Christians today in the Holy Land when we come back.
Well, I was there last night and it was absolutely wonderful. Here, people coming together. We had church choirs in the Regent Chapel. We had Handel's Messiah playing in the Regent Theater. So I encourage you, if you can brave the rain. Unfortunately, we're forecast not for snow, we're forecast for rain. Maybe we all need to get together and pray the rain away, but it'll be tonight, 6 to 9 p.m., and then tomorrow from noon to 9 p.m. It'll be fun for the whole family. So encourage you to come out. You can find more information. Just go to cbn.com and look for CBN Christmas Village. Well, tourists who visit the Holy Land often return home with an olive wood nativity or some other biblical figure. The creation of these handicrafts began in the Holy Land in the late 1800s, and today the sale of these crafts is providing a livelihood for Christians in the West Bank.
I'm Zach Mashriki. I'm a local Jerusalemite since hundreds of years. My family have been here. I sell lots of biblical items and olive wood and coins from the first century.
300 years BC coin. Wow.
This business was bought through my grandfather, and my uncle and my father worked in it, but we closed it for many years. And I just restarted it a few years back.
Yes. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Christian missionaries, when they came to the country in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they started to see that they need to teach people handicrafts in order to support their survival and make them stay here in the Holy Land. Still, there is many Christian families in the Holy Land here and some local Christians from the West Bank who does all of my olive wood. Olive tree for traditional farmers in the Holy Land means a lot. First of all, we look at it in the Bible. The dove that came to Noah came back with an olive branch. So olive means hope. We have many proverbs in Arabic connected to olives and oil. If you dream of olive tree, it means something good is going to happen. It's very connected to the Middle East and to people here. There's few kinds of olive tree. Mostly we choose the old Roman. It's a very solid tree that lives for thousands of years. It doesn't grow big, but it's always condensed and strong. So if you go to places in Jerusalem, you see that there is olive trees, fields since the Roman period. And this is where we focus on because these trees, it's 700 years old or 1,500 years old. This is what kind of moves us. So we don't cut it, on purpose, of course, but they're opening a road or if someone is building a home, then we take it and do what we have to do. So we cut it, we dry it for a few years, we decide from the beginning what it's gonna be. The guy that worked with me, he can see it from far away. He can look at it and say, this tree or these woods gonna be Christmas ornaments, let's say, or nativity. They carve biblical stories into wood and people enjoy it. It's beautiful and lives for a long time. And we like it because it's a family heirloom, from a mother to a daughter, from a father to son. We're helping local Christians to have their basic life. through the business that can have a good income, more food on their table. I think everybody's having a hard time to find work in the West Bank. The number of Christians is decreasing dramatically since 20 years. In 1966 and 65, Christians were around 65,000. Today, we're around 10. So this can help them to think of God more, pray more, and stay here, because their existence here in this country is very important.
Well, that's just one of the stories from Christmas traditions, so you can see the wonderful traditions that have grown up, not just here in America, but around the world. And I invite you to join in a Robertson family tradition, and this is something my father started decades ago, where the amount of money that we spend on Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day dinners is then matched and given away so that others can have. During this Christmas time, that's the message of the gospel. For God so loved the world that he gave. And so let's equal what he's doing, equal what we spend on our meals, and let's give to others. So for a special gift of $25 or more, we'll send you this wonderful DVD, Christmas Traditions. We'll take you around the world to show you how all our various holiday traditions came into being. Where did Santa Claus come from? Where did live nativity scenes come from? How did we establish December 25th as the day? All of that will be answered in this documentary. It's yours for a gift of $25 or more. So if you'd like it, call us now, 1-800-700-7000. Terry?
Well, up next, meet a woman who saved her life by changing her diet. Danielle Walker creates a delicious Christmas brunch that's perfect for paleo lovers, and it's totally gluten-free. I'm going to join her in our kitchen right after this. Well, when she was 22 years old, Danielle Walker almost died after she became severely ill and incapacitated from ulcerative colitis. She dramatically changed her diet, and today she's thriving.
Danielle Walker is a best-selling author and food blogger of the popular website AgainstAllGrain.com. She became a leader in the paleo and gluten-free movement 10 years ago after a diagnosis of a serious autoimmune disease. When Danielle began eliminating certain foods from her diet, it cured many of her ailments. Today, she helps others still enjoy foods they crave, despite the restrictions. In her cookbook, Eat What You Love, Danielle shares recipes you can make without sacrificing flavor, so you can spend more time with family and friends during the holidays.
Well, please welcome to the 700 Club, Danielle Walker. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what you experienced in those years when you were really not well.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is mostly digestive symptoms, but it also causes anemia, and so I had to take medical leave from my job. I was unable to get out of bed for weeks and months at a time. I was in hospitals multiple times during the year on very debilitating amounts of medications and just was not getting better.
You say in your cookbook, which we'll talk about in a minute, that doctors told you there was no connection between food and what you were experiencing, but it wasn't until you started to change your diet that you got better.
Right, yeah, they said there was no connection, it didn't cause, cure, or help. And after I started changing my diet and did an elimination diet, I noticed an improvement in my symptoms within 24 to 48 hours. It was pretty miraculous.
Quickly.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
A very strong correlation.
Well, the title of your book, it's called Eat What You Love, and most of us think if we have to do something to adapt things in our diet that we're just giving up flavor, giving up traditions in our family. And you have worked hard to keep that from happening.
Yes.
So how do we make the adjustments and enjoy the food we love?
Well, use my recipes for one. But yes, that was one of the things that I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to lose tradition and memories that I had tied to food, because I think we all have a lot of traditions tied to food. And it's also what brings us around the table together.
That's what I was going to say.
And dietary restrictions can divide people too. So I have set out in my kitchen and in my cookbooks to recreate all of those kind of family favorites and recreate them in a manner where whether or not you have dietary restrictions, you can still enjoy the foods and they look like the foods that you're used to.
Let's start on this side.
Okay.
What have you got on the end?
Well, so we wanted to provide a beverage. This is a gingerbread latte, and it has some gluten-free gingerbread cookie kind of sprinkled around there, but it's dairy-free, refined sugar-free, so it doesn't give you that kind of sugar crush afterwards.
Yes.
But it's still festive, and that's something that people want to still be able to enjoy.
And donuts?
Donuts, yes.
Really?
Yes. So they are nut-free, they're gluten-free, they're made with coconut flour,
Awesome.
some chocolate on top. Yeah, I have such great memories of eating donuts with my grandparents or at church growing up, and so that's something that I had to do for my kids to be able to enjoy.
And this is so pretty. You make your own bagels.
I do. So they're very easy. You just bake them in the shape comes from a silicone kind of mold, and you just bake them in your oven. And the great thing about all of these really is that you can keep them in the freezer. So if you have unexpected guests, or if you're going somewhere for breakfast and you want to pull a few things.
And you just want to grab something out, you don't have time to
Yes.
eat at home. How wonderful.
Yes, and these are so great for both breakfast or for lunch, because you don't have a lot of gluten-free bread options. So you could pull that out and make a nice sandwich on it.
Well, before we do anything
Yes,
here, let's
yes.
scoot over here. These are parfaits?
Yes, so there's a smoothie on the bottom with acai, which is really high in antioxidants, and then we have, instead of using a thickener, like a wheat flour, I use chia seeds, which are also very good for you, high in protein and fiber, and so this will keep you full throughout the day. It's elegant enough to serve to guests, but sometimes I put it in a jar and take it in the car with me as well, which is really nice.
And yum.
Yes,
I don't know what those
Who
are,
doesn't
but
love
yes,
chocolate?
I recognized it immediately.
Yes, chocolate zucchini muffins. So there's some extra hidden veggies in there for your kids. You could do carrots as well.
That keeps it moist,
It
too,
does.
right?
It keeps it incredibly moist, very decadent, still has that dark chocolate flavor.
Waffles?
Yes, those are waffles. The great thing about those too, you can put them in the freezer, pop them into a toaster, so you have a very nice breakfast, at any given moment.
Okay, and on the end, we've
yes,
got
the
some...
last thing are morning glory muffins.
Ooh.
So they are packed with so many different things. There's carrots and pineapple, sunflower seeds.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so
That's
they're
awesome.
delicious and filling, which is the best part.
So this is all brunch goodies. What are we doing with eggs here?
Okay, so these are crustless quiche. So in this bowl, we have some sweet potatoes, bacon, sausage, some Swiss chard, again, kind of getting in some of those greens and vegetables. I've already dumped some almond milk in there, but we can go ahead and put the coconut milk in.
This is coconut
And then
milk.
we've got some salt and pepper just for some flavor. And then I will just carefully spoon some of this in here. And again, the cool thing about this is you can really use whatever you have in your fridge. So if you have spinach or kale, or you have turkey bacon or whatever it is, you can just pack it full.
Yeah.
And then we will use the ladle here, and we can just fill these up. And I make a couple dozen of these at a time.
Did I overfill
That's
that,
okay, you know what,
obviously?
look, we can go just like that.
There you go. That's why we like this.
Yes, exactly.
And do you do it about 3/4 full? Is that
Yes, because they will puff up a bit.
Okay.
So you can eat these fresh, but you can also keep them in the freezer and pull whatever you need out, just for a fast breakfast, but also an
I
elegant
love that idea, because a lot of us use that breakfast bake at the
Yes,
holiday, and so
yes.
this is a year-round breakfast.
Yeah, and you
bake,
could make this as a full bake casserole if you'd prefer, instead of the individual sizes. But these are so nice, just to keep in the freezer and pull out.
Sure.
But yes, but if
Well,
you're hosting a big gathering, just bake it
You
all in
wanna
one
do
dish.
It all,
Yep.
all together.
Yep.
But again, a great and tasty breakfast. I'm kind of
I know, I'm
slathering
like,
this in
but
here.
you're going quickly.
I'm really better than this
You're
at
going
home. but
very
I'm just-
quickly. No, and it doesn't matter. It's the nice thing. So I will take this back to the oven. We have it
Okay.
preheated to 350.
Do we need, there
I think,
are
yes.
mitts back here. Okay.
Yes. And I believe
Take
we
out
have
the
one
real
already
deal.
done.
Ooh.
That's close.
Ooh.
Yes. So you just want to look to make sure they're set. We have some already out here. Perfect. They smell so good. And you really could do kind of whatever veggie mix you want. So I know we have some out here over on this little
This is the
tray so you
finished
can
product.
see them. Yes.
So you can just freeze these, pop them out when you want one, microwave them at the office, and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. You have a healthy breakfast and a breakfast elegant enough to serve holiday guests.
Well, you all know I collect cookbooks. This is another pretty one. I just want to say Danielle's book is called Eat What You Love. It's filled with amazing recipes and all the information you need to know about any ingredients that she's substituting for. It's available wherever books are sold. You can also find recipes for this festive Christmas brunch at cbn.com. And if you'd like to see more of Danielle's story on our Facebook page, just go to facebook.com/700club. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you
a
so
great
much for
job.
being
You showed us
here.
so much in
Yes,
such a short
lots
period
of
time.
options.
Okay. Cookbook. Great gift for somebody in your family, or maybe just you. Gordon?
Well, still ahead, a boy from a strict Buddhist family discovers who Jesus is. Watch how both he and his parents become Christians. And that's coming up later, so stay with us.
Welcome back to Washington for this CBN News break. French police shot and killed the suspect in an attack at a Christmas market in Strasbourg. France's interior minister said police spotted 29-year-old Sharif Chakat Thursday in a residential neighborhood. They moved to arrest him, but he opened fire. Cameras captured the immediate aftermath of the shootout. The suspect reportedly shouted Allahu Akbar before shouting into the crowd at the Christmas Village Tuesday, killing 3 and wounding 12 others. Well, Operation Blessing is working with Christian refugees in Jordan to help them transition back into normal life. The war in Syria and Iraq became an international refugee crisis as millions of persecuted Christians fled their homes. Operation Blessing is helping Christian families get access to education, health care, food, and vocational training. Teams are also providing more than 200 students with quality education and a daily meal. Suffering Christian families now have hope and a place to freely worship. Well, you can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website at ob.org. Gordon and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club right after this.
Well, in Thailand, a young boy went to church for the first time because he heard they were showing cartoons. Well, the cartoon was CBN's Superbook. When this boy saw it, he prayed to become a Christian, and soon his Buddhist family did so as well.
Go grew up in a strict Buddhist family in Thailand. But when he heard about a fun activity at a Christian church near his home, he got curious. That's where he saw CBN's Superbook for the first time.
It was very exciting. I watched David kill Goliath with a small stone. I learned that God can help us do great things.
Even though it was his first time at church, Go prayed along with his teacher after the Superbook episode.
I prayed that Jesus would forgive my sins. I invited him to come inside my heart. I was so happy that Jesus came into my life.
Then he went home to tell his mom about his decision.
I told her the story of David and Goliath, and I said, Mom, did you know that God can help us to do great things if we have him in our heart?
Go's mom immediately noticed there was something different about her son, and secretly wished that she had the same joy that she saw in him.
My heart was always heavy. We often went to the temple to receive a blessing. But when we got home, I felt like I was all alone in the dark.
The next week, Go invited his mom to go with him to church.
I listened to him, and he was right. Going to church filled me with joy.
2 weeks later, both of Go's parents went to church and prayed to become Christians.
I'm so glad that we can worship God together as a family.
Recently, Go's parents started a Bible study in their home where they shared Jesus with other Buddhist family members and friends.
It all started with Superbook. Superbook showed me that God is able to do anything.
Superbook, it's a wonderful thing. It's evangelistic, it's discipleship, it's educational, and best part, kids love to watch it. And when they watch it, they get the message of the Bible. They're getting the stories of the Bible. If you want to be a part of this, part of taking the stories of the Bible to the children of the world, we're now in over 43 languages. We're on our way to breaking the initial target of 55 languages for season 1. But there's a broadcast map where you can see all the different places we're broadcasting season 1, season 2, now season 3. We're finishing production on season 4, getting ready for season 5, and we need your help. Here's what we need. We need you to join the Superbook Club. To be a part of the production, to be a part of the translation, to be a part of the distribution. How much is it? Well, it's $25 a month. And when you join right now, in celebration of Christmas, we have a special Christmas offer. We'll send you 6 DVDs for a gift of $25 or more. There's 2 episodes here. One is the first Christmas, and that's part of season 1. But our latest episode, which is Jesus Feeds the Hungry. It's a wonderful story. It's yours when you join. So if you want to be a part of it, call us now, 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to join the Superbook Club, and here's my gift of $25. Terry?
Well, up next, worship leader Roy Fields joins us. He's going to discuss the revelation that inspired his new Christmas song, Emmanuel Has Come. Plus, he's going to perform live after this.
Well, Roy Fields had a busy travel and ministering schedule here in the U.S. and abroad, and then he took some concentrated time to seek the Lord. That's when he received a powerful revelation about Emmanuel.
Christian recording artist Roy Fields and his wife Melanie had a comfortable life with good jobs, a nice home, and 2 growing children. Then in 2005, they left that life behind to pursue God's calling into full-time ministry. Traveling around the country, Roy encouraged people to draw closer to God in worship. Since then, they've released several albums. And today, Roy welcomes the Christmas season with his new song, Emmanuel Has Come.
Well, please welcome back to the 700 Club my dear friend Roy Fields, and it's great to have you.
Man.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so how do you get time for a sabbatical?
It was time. It was time, you know, from traveling all over the place and it's just seeing the world. We've been to 41 countries now, my wife and I and our kids. And I just, you know, I came back from Brazil, Gordon. I was with 40,000 people in the stadium. I'm living the dream. God's called me to preach and sing and all this. And I thought, this is great. Everything's great. And the Lord was like, yeah, I need to talk to you for a minute. Let's have a conversation. And I started realizing that part of my life.
That sounds like it's going to be a bad conversation.
No, it was a good conversation. It felt bad because.
It's like you're being summoned to the principal's office.
I think so, which was common for me when I was a kid. And I just started seeking the Word like I never did before, and I had this hunger for God that it went deeper than what I thought I had. And it's like the Lord chimed in as a father and said, you know, if you stopped what you're doing right now, it will never change my love for you. And it was like you could go to Cape Town, South Africa and get a house and live on the farm right now and stop what you're doing, and I would not be upset with you. And I realized that a lot of what I was doing in ministry was trying to fill a void of what was empty in my own heart. And I wanted God to be happy with me. And I felt like if I wasn't out there working, doing the ministry and doing stuff, He wasn't that happy with me. That really happened. And I got a revelation. I started realizing this is relational more than I thought. And it messed me up, something pretty awful. And then it was glorious. So it was like a glorious, frightening experience. Best way I can put it.
Okay. How would you encourage people to take that kind of sabbatical? Because when you get involved in ministry, it tends to accelerate.
Yeah.
And the busyness tends to accelerate.
Right. Which you're no stranger to.
No, you got to be intentional.
There's a balance that I'm learning as you get older. You learn to not be so aggressive in the sense of that you have to go save the world. You have to be at rest with your relationship with God. And if you're not, sometimes, like you said, we take that ministry side of things and we believe that that's what's keeping the Lord happy. That's what's making Him pleased and everything. Mm-hmm. He's not a taskmaster. He's our Heavenly Father. And I would say to somebody that's looking like, how do I do something like this? It's really getting quiet. And there's a scripture that says, be still and know that I am God. Be still in Hebrew means to relax. Yeah. In 2018, it means to chill out and just know that He's God. He's not just with you, He's in you, which is what Emmanuel Has Come is all about too, is that I started realizing Emmanuel means God with us. And that means that He cannot be Emmanuel without us.
That is profound.
He has married Himself to us. There is no way we could run from Him. It's impossible. And I started seeing that revelation, Gordon, and it started blowing my mind. You know how it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind? Mm-hmm. If I could just reinterpret that, I think it's be transformed by the blowing of your mind. Because the heart is always trying to speak to us, which is where God operates in. And our mind keeps saying, you're not good enough. You got to do more. You have to do this, get this done. And
well, I found for me, my busyness was more about me than it was about God.
Right.
That I felt I needed to be busy just for me. It wasn't about Him.
Right.
And I had to really change that. Is this about Him or is it about me? Because if it's about Him, then it's about knowing Him more.
Yeah.
And that requires time. You can't have relationship without time.
And there's a rest there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a peace there.
Yeah.
You know, I started looking at John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We know John 1:14 says the Word became flesh, which makes the Word Jesus. So I started seeing something different. The word with in Greek is pros. Pros means face to face. That gives a little bit more revelation of what John the Apostle was saying to us. And I saw it. I felt like I had a John moment, a Paul moment. And it was like I heard it like this now. In the beginning was Jesus. And Jesus was face to face with his Father. And Jesus was his Father.
The reflection, the perfect reflection.
Correct.
They're giving me a hard rap because we've got to hear the song. So I'm going to release you right now. You've got to go to the stage. We're going to hear your song. This is the Great Revelation. His song is called Emmanuel Has Come. To find more information on how to get the song, all you have to do is go to cbn.com. And if you'd like to hear more from Roy, just go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/700club. And now, here is Roy Field singing Emmanuel Has Come.